The morning had slipped into its usual rhythm, the sun casting long, pale fingers through the kitchen windows, when I tried to make my escape. But there she stood, casually blocking the doorway with a kind of feline grace, the belt of her robe hanging loosely at her side. "Say good morning properly," she insisted, her voice smooth yet edged with challenge. I mumbled a greeting, attempting to sidestep, but she didn't budge. Her lips were damp from coffee, and she tilted her head, the gesture both playful and demanding. Avoiding her eyes was impossible. She leaned in, her gaze locking onto mine with a quiet intensity. A smile played on her lips, satisfied, as if she had won some unspoken wager. "I'm Ethan Weller, 32, an architect by trade, currently in the throes of an emotional maelstrom. My usual days revolve around blueprints and the comforting predictability of concrete and steel. But this was different. This was a dance on the edge of something both thrilling and dangerous." Standing there, caught in her gaze, I felt a mixture of fear and curiosity, a pull towards forbidden closeness that was undeniably magnetic. Her name was Claire. Claire Jennings, my mother's friend. She was in her early 40s, with an air of confidence that seemed to wrap around her like an invisible cloak. Her demeanor was both warm and enigmatic, a blend of maternal comfort and mysterious allure. There was a vibrancy about her, an energy that seemed to fill the room and shape the atmosphere around her. Her presence was a contradiction, comforting yet unsettling, familiar yet tantalizingly unknown. "Morning, Ethan," she said again, softer this time, as if coaxing me to engage, to acknowledge the unspoken tension that hummed between us. Her eyes held mine, and for a moment, the world outside the kitchen faded into silence. "Morning, Claire," I finally managed, the words catching slightly in my throat. She nodded, satisfied, and stepped aside, letting me pass with a lingering smile that suggested this was far from over. The suburbs around my mother's house were quiet, the kind of neighborhood where secrets whispered behind closed doors and pristine lawns. As I walked to my car parked on the street, I couldn't shake the feeling of Claire's eyes on me, as if she could see through the walls and windows, tracking my every move. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and distant wood smoke, but beneath it all, there was a tension, an unspoken promise of something more. I got into my car, the interior cold and familiar, and sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. My mind was a swirl of conflicting emotions: desire, fear, a strange curiosity. Why did her gaze affect me so much? Why did her presence linger in my thoughts like a haunting melody? Driving away, I tried to focus on the day ahead, on the plans and projects waiting at my office downtown. But Claire's image remained, a specter that refused to be ignored. Her face seemed to hover just at the edge of my consciousness, a constant reminder of the previous encounter. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see her, the way she stood in the doorway, the soft yet firm tone of her voice, the challenge in her eyes. My office was on the 13th floor of a modern high-rise, a space filled with the hum of computers and the busy chatter of architects and engineers deep in discussion. Yet, even the bustling environment couldn't distract me from the thoughts of Claire. My desk, usually a bastion of order, was cluttered with sketches and models, evidence of my distracted state. I looked at the miniature buildings, the blueprints spread out in front of me, but all I could see was her smile, the curve of her lips, the unspoken challenge that lingered in the air between us. The day passed in a blur, meetings and consultations merging into one another. My colleagues noticed my distraction, the way my mind seemed to wander, and I fielded questions about my well-being with vague assurances. But how could I explain the complexity of my feelings, the way my heart raced at the mere thought of her? How could I articulate the pull of something so forbidden, yet so enticing? The evening found me back at my mother's house, drawn by the pull of family obligations and the promise of a home-cooked meal. Claire was there, of course, a part of the scenery as much as the furniture and the well-worn rugs. She was helping my mother in the kitchen, her laughter a soft undercurrent to the clatter of dishes and the hiss of simmering pots. "Ethan, could you give me a hand?" she called out, glancing over her shoulder with a smile that was both inviting and challenging. I hesitated for a heartbeat, then crossed the room to join her, aware of the way her eyes followed my every move. We worked side by side, the space between us charged with an electricity that neither of us acknowledged. The air was thick with the scent of cooking, a comforting blend of herbs and spices, but beneath it all was the undercurrent of tension, the unspoken connection between us. "Thanks," she said, her hand brushing mine as she passed a plate. The contact was brief but electric, a jolt that seemed to travel straight to my core. "No problem," I replied, trying to sound casual, but my voice betrayed me, a hint of something more lurking beneath. Her touch lingered on my skin, a sensation that I couldn't shake, no matter how much I tried to focus on the task at hand. The evening passed in a blur of conversation and laughter, the tension between us a silent thread that wove through it all. I was hyper-aware of her presence, the way she moved, the sound of her voice. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. The familiarity of the setting, my childhood home filled with the sounds of family and comfort, contrasted sharply with the turmoil inside me, the conflict of emotions that twisted my thoughts. Later, as I stood on the porch, the night air cool against my skin, Claire joined me. The street was quiet, the stars hidden behind a veil of clouds. She leaned against the railing, her shoulder brushing mine, and for a moment, we simply stood there, the silence between us a living thing. "You're quiet tonight," she observed, her voice soft, as if not to disturb the night. "Just tired," I lied, though we both knew better. The truth was a knot in my chest, a weight that I couldn't shake. "Ethan," she said, turning to face me, her eyes searching mine. "We're playing with fire, aren't we?" Her words hung in the air, the truth of them undeniable. I nodded, unable to find my voice, the fear of what might happen if we crossed that line holding me back. "Maybe," I admitted, the word a whisper that seemed to echo in the stillness. For a moment, the world held its breath, the possibility of what might be lingering between us like a shadow. But then she stepped back, breaking the spell, and the moment passed. "Good night, Ethan," she said, her voice gentle, but there was something in her eyes, a promise or a challenge. I couldn't quite tell. "Good night, Claire," I replied, watching as she disappeared back into the house, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the night. The chill of the evening seeped into my bones as I stood there, staring at the darkened windows, the silhouette of her form still etched in my mind. The days that followed were a blur of routine and unspoken tension. Claire and I danced around each other, the unacknowledged connection between us a constant undercurrent. At work, I found it difficult to concentrate, her image intruding into my thoughts at the most inopportune moments. Every glance, every fleeting touch, was charged with a meaning that we both understood but never spoke of. One evening, I found myself back at my mother's house, drawn by some invisible thread. Claire was there, as always, her presence both comforting and unsettling. We found ourselves alone in the kitchen again, the familiar setting a backdrop to the unspoken drama between us. "Ethan, can we talk?" she asked, her voice serious, her eyes searching mine. "Of course," I replied, though my heart was pounding in my chest, a drumbeat of fear and anticipation. "We need to be careful," she said, stepping closer, her gaze never leaving mine. Whatever this is, it could hurt a lot of people." "I know," I admitted, the weight of her words settling over me like a shroud. "I don't want to hurt anyone, least of all my mom. We need to figure out what we're doing, Ethan," she continued, her voice a mixture of resolve and something softer. "Before it's too late." The air between us was thick with tension, the possibility of crossing that invisible line a constant temptation. "I agree," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't know how to stop feeling this way." Her eyes softened, and for a moment, I thought she might reach out, might break the barrier that held us apart. But instead, she nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the truth we both faced. The next morning was quiet, the house still as I prepared to leave. Claire was already in the kitchen, her presence a familiar comfort. She offered me a cup of coffee, her smile warm but her eyes serious. "We'll figure this out, Ethan," she said, her voice steady, a promise lingering in her words. "Yeah," I replied, grateful for the unspoken understanding between us. It wasn't a resolution, but it was something, a fragile new dynamic that we both seemed to accept. As I left the house, the morning sun brightening the world around me, I felt a sense of hope, a belief that somehow we would find a way through this. The relationship between us had shifted, redefined by the conversations and silences we shared. It wasn't perfect, but it was something, and for now it was enough. The days turned into weeks, each one a delicate dance around the unspoken tension between Claire and me. I found solace in my work, in the lines and structures that filled my world with order. But there was no blueprint for what lay between us, no guide to navigate the complexities of emotion and desire that simmered beneath the surface. Our encounters became a series of stolen moments, each one charged with an intensity that left me breathless. We never spoke of the feelings that bound us, the connection that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. Instead, we existed in a space defined by what was unsaid, a fragile equilibrium that held us on the edge of something more. One afternoon, as I sat at my drafting table, the sun casting long shadows across the room, I realized that the lines between my professional and personal life were blurring. The precision and clarity I sought in my designs were mirrored in the chaos of my emotions, a juxtaposition that left me feeling unmoored. It was a quiet evening when Claire and I found ourselves alone again, the house empty except for the two of us. My mother was out, attending a function with friends, leaving an air of opportunity that hung between us like a whisper. We sat in the living room, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light over the room. Claire was on the couch, her presence both familiar and foreign, a comfort and a challenge all at once. I sat across from her, the space between us a chasm filled with possibilities and fears. "Ethan," she began, her voice soft, hesitant, "I've been thinking about us." I met her gaze, my heart pounding in my chest, anticipation and dread mingling in a heady mix. "And," she sighed, a sound filled with the weight of unspoken words, "I don't know what to do. Whatever this is, it's becoming harder to ignore." "I know," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I feel it too." Her eyes searched mine, a silent plea for understanding. "We can't keep pretending, Ethan. It's not fair to anyone, least of all ourselves." The truth of her words settled over me like a shroud, the reality of our situation undeniable. "What do you suggest?" She hesitated, as if weighing her words carefully. "Maybe we should take a step back, try to figure out what we really want." The thought of distancing myself from her was a knife to my heart, but I knew she was right. We were on a path that could only lead to heartache, a road paved with good intentions and impossible dreams. "Okay," I agreed, the word a reluctant admission of the truth we both faced. "But it's not going to be easy." "No, it's not," she admitted, her voice a mixture of resolve and regret. "But it's the right thing to do." The days that followed were a test of willpower, a struggle to maintain the fragile balance we had agreed upon. Claire and I kept our distance, the space between us a reminder of the choice we had made. It was painful, each encounter a reminder of what we had lost, but it was necessary, a step towards finding clarity in the chaos of our emotions. I threw myself into my work, the precision and order of architecture a welcome distraction from the turmoil inside me. The lines and shapes that filled my days were a balm to my troubled mind, a reminder that some things could still be controlled, even when my heart felt like a hurricane. Claire and I maintained a polite distance, our interactions careful and measured. The unspoken tension between us remained, a silent reminder of what could have been, but we both knew it was for the best. We were navigating a new normal, a fragile peace that held the promise of understanding and, perhaps, healing. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I found myself on the porch, the cool air a welcome respite from the heat of the day. Claire joined me, her presence a familiar comfort despite the distance we maintained. "Beautiful evening," she remarked, her eyes on the horizon. "Yeah," I agreed, the simplicity of the moment a balm to my restless thoughts. We stood in companionable silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us. It was a moment of peace, a reminder that even amidst the chaos, there were moments of clarity, of understanding. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." "For what?" I asked, genuinely curious. "For understanding," she replied, her eyes meeting mine with a sincerity that touched me deeply. I nodded, the simplicity of her gratitude a reminder of the connection we still shared. It wasn't the resolution I had hoped for, but it was something, a step towards healing and acceptance. As the stars emerged, twinkling in the vastness of the night sky, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We had chosen a difficult path, but it was the right one, a journey towards understanding and acceptance that would, hopefully, lead us to a place of clarity. In the weeks that followed, Claire and I found a new rhythm, a balance between the past and the present. Our interactions were cautious but genuine, a testament to the journey we had undertaken. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary, a step towards healing and understanding. I continued to immerse myself in my work, the precision and order of architecture a refuge from the complexities of emotion. The lines and shapes that filled my days were a reminder that some things could still be controlled, even when the heart felt like a storm. Claire and I maintained a respectful distance, our interactions careful but genuine. The unspoken tension between us remained, a silent reminder of what could have been, but we both knew it was for the best. We were navigating a new normal, a fragile peace that held the promise of understanding and, perhaps, healing. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between us began to ease, replaced by a sense of camaraderie and understanding. It wasn't the resolution I had hoped for, but it was something, a step towards healing and acceptance. We had chosen a difficult path, but it was the right one, a journey towards understanding and acceptance that would, hopefully, lead us to a place of clarity. In the end, we found a way to coexist, to navigate the complexities of our emotions with grace and understanding. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough, a fragile new dynamic that held the promise of healing and, perhaps, a deeper understanding of ourselves. And as the days continued to pass, I found a sense of peace in the knowledge that we had faced the storm and emerged stronger for it, ready to embrace whatever the future held.